Things were better before. Fame nowadays is so fake. Michael Jackson is better than Taylor Swift. You've heard that a million times, right? That old saying, the good old days. Look, I get the nostalgia, but here's the thing. Was fame really more human back then? Or do we just know more about the business now? Here's the truth. Fame was never completely human, and music always had a dark side. But something did get lost along the way. Something about how we listen, how we measure, and how we sell. In this video, we are going through the history of Billboard, not to defend them or destroy them, but to understand how was fame measured before, how is it measured now, what did we gain, what did we lose, and the big question, was fame more legitimate back then, or is it just nostalgia?
I remember the light when it turned around.
Billboard wasn't born as the judge of music. It started as an advertising magazine. Back then, if you wanted to know what was happening in entertainment, you bought a magazine. No internet, no social media. That was it. So, what made Billboard special? The mailbox service. Picture this. You are an artist traveling from city to city. No phone, no internet, nobody knows where you are. Billboard offered the service. Artists could sign up for a mailbox. The magazine would get their mail and post a notice. Hey, there's something for you. They had a section where artists announced where they would be. The result? Anyone who bought Billboard knew where artists were. Fans, manager, family, even the government. During World War I, the government used Billboard to contact artists because they knew the magazine had the contract. See what this means? Billboard built their power on human connections. Fame back then felt more real because it was personal. Artists weren't distant figures, they were people you could actually meet. But here's the catch. Who controlled that mailbox? Who decided which messages to deliver? Billboard did. And that, my friends, is power. In the 1920s, Billboard did something revolutionary. They hired James Albert Jackson as the first black critic at a national magazine with a mostly white audience. This was the era of segregation. A commercial magazine hiring a black critic to write about black music? Almost unheard of. What does this mean? Billboard wasn't just measuring music, they were giving space for black voices. But don't get it twisted, it was also business. Black music sold. This duality, social focus and commercial focus, is a constant in our story. Now, how did Billboard start measuring music? Two things: radio and jukeboxes. During the Great Depression, people couldn't afford instruments or records, but a jukebox only needed a coin. Radio was free. Billboard started calling record stores and jukebox operators. What's selling? What's being played? Here is the cool part. Jukeboxes had a little mechanical counter that registered how many times a record was played. Billboard would call operators and ask for the numbers. That was their algorithm. Manual, slow, prone to errors, but it was the best they had. Here's the thing. Today we have millions of data points. Back then, everything depended on what operators told Billboard. What if an operator had a deal with a label? What if they wanted a certain song to win? You think that never happened? Well, we'll get to that because corruption didn't start with streaming. In the 1940s, Billboard launched the Harlem Hit Parade. Why? Before Billboard, record companies already had their own categories: race records for black artists, hillbilly music for white southerners. Why? Because segmentation sold more. Billboard didn't invent genres, they inherited them. But here's the thing. A national magazine dedicating a list to the black neighborhood? That had real social impact. The name changing over time, rhythm and blues, soul, black singles, R&B, hip-hop. What does this mean? Genres aren't permanent. They are labels that change with music, society, and the market. Billboard didn't invent genres. They formalized them, turning them into a measurement tool. And that's power, because who decides what's R&B and what's hip-hop? Billboard did. Seems objective to you? Now here's the paradox. Billboard gave visibility to marginalized communities, but they also used genres to segment the market. Social focus or commercial focus, both. And that duality is what makes Billboard so fascinating and so problematic. In the late 1950s, Billboard launched the Hot 100. The Hot 100 combined record sales and radio airplay. Jukeboxes were no longer part of it. This was the moment Billboard became the industry standard. But here's where it gets interesting. In the 1960s, black music got popular with white audiences, and the R&B charts got invaded. The problem? The R&B chart no longer represented the black community. What did they do? They reformed the list, limited data to black-owned stores and R&B radio stations. The list disappeared for a while. When it came back, it only included black artists. Billboard preferred to lose data rather than lose representation. That's important. But here's the other side. In the 70s and 80s, Billboard became a giant. Awards, annual charts, global influence, and with power came corruption. Label discovered they could help artists reach number one. And how? Payola, paying radio station to play songs. And Billboard knew for a long time they looked the other way. Because if labels paid for radio play, numbers went up. And Billboard sold more magazines. The vicious cycle. Fame was never purely organic. There was always someone deciding what's popular. The question isn't whether there's manipulation, it's what kind. The jukebox operator, the radio executive, or the Spotify algorithm. Now we are in the present. Today, the Hot 100 combines streaming like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, digital sales like iTunes, Amazon, AirPlay, millions of data points every second. Seems more objective, right? No more jukebox operators, now it's algorithms, but there's the question. Who decides the weight of each metric? How much is a stream worth compared to a sale? That's where the real power is. And here's the irony. When Billboard added streaming to R&B and hip-hop charts, they used the same method at the Hot 100, didn't distinguish who was listening. The result? Charts that represent the communities were now just the Hot 100 with filters. And the social focus Billboard built over decades? Gone. Because streaming is anonymous, you don't know who's listening. And without that data, the charts lose meaning. But wait, it gets better. YouTube and Billboard broke up. YouTube stopped giving its data to Billboard. But why? It started with a simple question. How much is a play worth? Billboard doesn't weight all plays equally. What does that mean? Not all plays count the same. It's like a final exam counting more than homework. Billboard's formula prioritizes certain plays. A play on Spotify Premium counts more than a free play with ads. Why? Because Billboard measures commercial success. Paid plays generate more revenue. Until recently, one paid play was equal to 3 free plays. So my vote as a paying user counts the same as 3 free users. Seems fair? YouTube said no. YouTube head of music said every play should count equally, every fan matters. Basically, not everyone can afford subscription, but their support still counts. So Billboard tried to compromise. They changed it to 1 pay equals to 2.3, but YouTube wanted 1-to-1. And since they couldn't agree, YouTube left. What does this mean for artists? Some artists will suffer more. Those who depend on YouTube, such as K-pop, reggaeton, viral sensations, could see their Billboard numbers drop. Because if YouTube doesn't give data, Billboard doesn't count it. Now, here's the real question. Is YouTube the savior defending fans without money? Or are they part of the same problem? Well, YouTube have interest too. Their business is advertising. More free plays equal more ads. They are not defending fans out of kindness. They are defending their own business. And Billboard defends labels and paid subscriptions. So it's not good versus evil, it's two giants with different business models. And in the middle, the artists and fans. So back to the original question, was fame more legitimate back then? The answer is complicated. On one hand, yes. Fame was built on human connections, letters, jukeboxes, tours. On the other hand, no. There was always manipulations, always someone deciding who's famous. So what changed? Easy, transparency. Before you didn't know a jukebox operator could inflate numbers. Now you know an algorithm can. You don't know why it recommends a song, why one artist is number one and another isn't. The manipulation before was personal, now it's systemic. That's the difference. Fame before wasn't more legitimate, but it was easier to understand. Today, fame is a product of a system nobody fully understands. And that's what makes nostalgia so powerful. It's not that before was better, it's that before was more human. So we've seen Billboard's journey from advertising magazine to judge of music. Their wins, giving voice to minorities, human connections, but their shadows are manipulations, corruption, the struggle between social and commercial. And now, the battle continues. YouTube has left. The question remains. Who defines what's popular? YouTube's algorithm? Billboard's formula? Or the fans? But this is just the tip. The ultimate question is, pure fame even possible? Because music is art, but it's also business. Drop a comment, YouTube or Billboard. Who's right? Or are both part of the problem? I believe music always finds a way to be authentic, despite the numbers, despite the charts, despite the industry. Music is human, and nobody can take that away. God bless you all.